Okay, what are the agenda items? So this is our last meeting as a Climate Action Planning Committee.
Say the date.
This is June 20th, 2024. And the first order of business is to approve the minutes from the previous CAPC meeting from May 16th. Any questions, comments? So we'll note them as approved. And now, do we need a vote on
No, you can accept them as presented.
Yeah,
that? Accept it as presented.
all right.
Also, the minutes from.
Oh, the minutes from June 5th, June 5th.
Yes.
The roadmap presentation that were also sent out in advance. Any comments on those? So we vote to or agree to accept them as presented.
Great.
And now, updates from our sustainability manager.
Okay. Bear with me for a moment while I try to find my Word doc. All right. So some highlights. Since last time we met, we had a kickoff meeting, for our, DOER Municipal Building Decarbonization Roadmap Technical Assistance Project. So you might recall we were selected for this grant, which will fund the consulting services to do these roadmaps for all of our municipal buildings to basically help us determine what would be needed to fully electrify them. The vendor we were selected to work with is Power Options. And we were basically given a template at that kickoff meeting with all of the information that Power Options needs us to collect in order to do these roadmaps. So that is a top priority for this summer. We'll be pulling that information together. A little bit more information about the Climate Leaders Program has come out through this process. Because as you may recall, doing these roadmaps is a requirement for eligibility into the Climate Leader Communities Program. So DOER has decided that they will open Climate Leader Communities designation starting July 25th. And you'll be eligible to apply from July 25th to December 31st. December 31st of this year, yeah, so that will be, whoever applies and is accepted, that'll be cohort number 1. Interestingly, it seems like DOER might not put out all of the details for the Climate Leader Program before December 31st, which is an interesting choice. So details regarding the amount of funding, whether communities who are currently using Green Communities funds have to expend those funds before they can apply for the Climate Leader Communities funds. It sounds like they want to see what the pool of communities is going to look like first, to see how much money will be being used at that time.
Is it a competitive process or a rolling first come first served?
It's rolling as long as we meet those 6 criteria, then you're considered accepted. Yeah, and we're again doing these roadmaps. That will be one of the biggest criteria left to meet, and then the only other remaining one is adoption of an EV first policy. So if we are able to secure both of those before December 31st, we could apply for the first cohort. There will certainly be an opportunity to apply for the second cohort if that timing doesn't work out for this year. But
Well, would there be a thought that there might not be as much money available or?
I don't
Possible.
believe so. It sounds like the program isn't gonna be funded with a legislative appropriation. It sounds like DOER has some funding that they've set aside for the program. They've been very vague about the funding, unfortunately. It's expected that it will be for an amount greater than 500,000, but they haven't locked in an amount and they haven't said if there'll be any fluctuation in funding year to year. I'm assuming it will be consistent just based on how they've described it so far, but there's nothing in writing about the program for actual applying for eligibility, so this might be a situation where more information comes to light after the first cohort is actually identified.
Okay.
So we're closely monitoring the situation, and as more information comes to light, we'll share it. But that's what we know so far about the program. The second item, we talked about this really briefly last time, but we did apply to join the Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnerships, Massachusetts and Rhode Island Building Performance Standard cohort. So this is a group that's being funded with Department of Energy funds. And basically, NEEP is putting together a group to discuss building performance standards, building efficiency, building emissions reduction disclosure ordinances, kind of giving municipalities a chance to get a better lay of the land of what those programs look like and understand what it takes to implement them. This would be a chance for us to kind of learn more about what options are out there and get a better handle on, what's working in other communities, what's not working. So I think it will be a valuable, technical assistance tool.
So that's an educational project and not a cooperative project where standards are set.
Exactly, purely educational, just a chance for communities to do some peer learning, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. The third item, we are preparing to submit a proposal for DOER's new energy efficiency and conservation block grant program. So you might be familiar with this program from other communities. This program has a formula for set grant funding for larger communities. The cap was 35,000. So we're actually too small to meet the formula grant, but DOER recognizing that there's about 300 communities in Massachusetts who are too small for that threshold, created a subrecipient program. So we will be applying for that. The grant funds are 50 to 75,000. And they fund a couple different types of projects. We're planning to apply for 75,000 to fund installation at the Mitchell School for the attic, which is currently not insulated. So that's our plan for that one. That grant is due in August, and we're working right now with AECom on putting together a scope for that.
Is it work, so Mitchell may be possibly
Yeah,
rebuilt, right?
yes, yeah, and we did talk about other types of projects because this is a smaller amount of funding. And they were looking for very specific types of building envelope improvements. This felt like it was probably like the more appropriate size project.
Mitchell might be 10 years away.
Yeah, that's, I think, a good point as well. Like in the meantime, we'll benefit from any efficiency improvements that are made.
Okay.
Would it?
Does I mean, because I know it's a lot of money, and I don't know when the school is gonna be coming down, it'll obviously save something. I don't know if what it'll save relative to the grant, but does the High Rock School qualify or need anything? Is there any building where the money can go into where it's not going to be at risk of being taken down in some odd years down the road because it would be unfortunate.
No,
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point, Artie. I mean, we talked about some of the other schools, but
Yeah.
for doing an installation project, Mitchell kind of rose to the top as a project that could have high impact because there's literally no insulation in that attic right now. And for the amount of funding it would take for us to do other installation projects in other schools, it would be to a point where the grant would be very little compared to the amount of money we would have to put in.
can you use the grant to augment another project? Let's say you wanna put panels on a school, solar panels, for example, could you use that grant, partial grant for something that would be more permanent and maybe have better bang for the buck down the road, I guess is my question.
Solar panels aren't covered under this grant. The other thing that's tricky about this is we have to spend the funds within the fiscal year, so it has to be a project we can do within a shorter construction period. So they funded for this, building envelope improvements that could include, insulation, windows, roof updates. So it's tricky. I mean, this is, I will say, it's gonna be a highly competitive grant because there will be 301 other communities applying for, I think it's like $1.1 million worth of funds. And they're capping it at 50 to 75,000 per community. So I think this is like probably the project that would have the highest impact, and that would probably play well for us in the application. So,
At least it isn't our money.
yeah, so it's not,
I mean,
it's not our.
we get a
budget.
benefit, but we're not.
Is the ROI less than 10 years?
I'm hoping that that will be included in our scope because that's a requirement for the application. I will make sure that AECom includes that.
Cause I would think if it's a 10-year building and has a 8-year ROI, even after the grant money, then
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
insulation can be tricky, but there's nothing.
I suppose you had mentioned windows, I don't know. So the question, so in the grant submittal, the ROI has to be included as part of the grant submittal for the project.
yes, yeah, we will have to include that. Any other questions? The fourth item on here, we've started planning for our residential and commercial focused outreach program. We have an intern with us this summer from University of Michigan who's done some great research on programs in other communities. So we've started to put together topics to include in that program. We had a great meeting earlier this week with Amy Hilson, who's our Director of Communications and Community Engagement, to kind of talk about what kinds of strategies would be most effective for reaching different demographics in the community. So we're still at the beginning stage for that. We'll be reaching out to Green Needham again very soon.
Is that the Electrify Needham,
Yeah,
as you call
yeah,
it? Okay,
Electrify Needham, unless it has another name.
I like that.
So that's still a work in progress, and the target for that is that program will be up and running by the end of the summer. Fifth item on here, we recently hosted a Green Communities Northeast gathering for municipal sustainability staff. So this is a quarterly meeting that's hosted with DOER. So Green Community staff were there, municipal staff from Northeastern Massachusetts. This is a nice opportunity to learn a little bit about what other communities are working on right now and touch base with DOER.
Are we doing?
I think we're doing all right. Yeah, there's a lot of things happening here, which is great. And there's a lot of things happening in our peer communities, which is also great.
So,
Do some sharing of ideas. Yeah. Next week, we're gonna be hosting a meeting for municipal building and sustainability staff on implementation best practices for the specialized opt-in code. This is something that we had talked about with our building staff as kind of an opportunity to do some peer sharing with other communities that are implementing the code right now. So it's kind of an opportunity for a group of us to discuss what's working in other communities that are implementing. For communities who haven't implemented like us, we implement July 1. This is a kind of a chance to ask questions, share resources. We put this invitation out to all of the communities who have passed the specialized opt-in code. And we have a good number who are coming to the meeting. I think it's about 20.
where's it being held?
At PSAB,
Okay.
yeah.
Where's that?
Oh, at 500 Dedham, so just for the
We,
Yeah.
we're starting July 1, 25, or?
24. We're starting
No, I
next
thought,
month,
I
yeah.
thought somehow it had a 6-month.
It did.
We did have a 6-month, yeah.
Stephen, what was it, 6 months ago?
It was October town.
Oh,
meeting
that's
of
right,
23, but,
Time flies when I was thinking it was this past time meeting.
yeah.
Right, so next,
Yeah.
for the month of July 1st.
Okay.
Is there a similar strategizing gonna be done with regular contractors and non-municipal, which I think is a more challenging task?
I think that's something we'll talk about is what's working for education and outreach. I think some communities have put together some really nice materials and done some focus groups to kind of help that conversation along. So that's definitely gonna be part of the conversation.
Steve has a raised hand.
Steven?
Yeah, I was wondering how's Joe and his team feeling ready for July 1st? Have you had conversations with them recently, and are they
Yeah.
are they trained up, or are they planning to enforce it July 1? Do they think there's going to be any confusion?
The plan is definitely still July 1. They have been getting a lot of questions. My impression is that they feel ready to go, but are looking forward to this meeting next week to kind of see if there's any last bits and pieces from other communities that we can take advantage of to make sure that our implementation goes smoothly. I'm sure there'll be quite a few more questions after July 1. But I think folks are feeling ready.
Mary Ann asked this, and I answered it, hopefully correctly. The code does not apply to any project for which a building permit was granted prior to July 1. That's correct?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? That one?
The building guidance and, July 1st.
Yeah.
The permitting guidance.
I feel July
Sorry, whatever communication there is or slide deck that's put together. I know you're talking about municipal building and sustainability stuff. If it pertains, let's say, to the public, when people are gonna be looking for additions, new homes and so forth. If there's any worth to making it available to the public, that
Yeah.
would, it makes some sense. If it makes
Yeah.
sense to do that.
I completely agree, Artie. Yeah, if there's anything that seems like it's worthwhile for broader sharing, we'll definitely capture that. We have a dedicated page right now on the town sustainability page for FAQs about the opt-in code, but I'm sure we'll get more resources over the course of next week. And the next item, we met with Mass Development recently to talk about some eligibility questions and learn more about the municipal opt-in process for PACE. And we also confirmed with town council that this would only require a select board vote. So now we're gonna have some additional conversations with staff internally about if we did opt into PACE, what kind of impacts would this have on staff time? Get a better sense of what it would take to have the program up and running in Needham. So still in the very initial discussion stage, but we're making some progress and doing some good information gathering. Already, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was up, only to let you know that, I mean, this can fairly directly affect my bottom, I mean, myself, as far as, because PACE funding is certainly can be used for solar going on buildings. This PACE is for commercial buildings. And so I will be, any scope if conversations within our group, I would be limiting my scope of any conversations I have. And I mean, I know the worth, I've seen the worth in Rhode Island, but again, it's directly related to my business. So I will be limiting my scope in any conversation. That's all.
Thanks.
Thank you, Artie. And no updates on municipal electricity aggregation at this time. I know. We might say no updates there for a little while. On that,
Medfield
sorry.
just got approved, right?
Medfield,
Did it?
I think Medfield's program just got launched in the past couple of weeks. At least it was on Denise Garlick's or somebody's roundup. I can't remember. Somebody had an email that went out and talked about Medfield going live. So maybe there's a break in the dam.
When did they apply, do you know?
Well, I don't know. I mean, but it seems like it'd been like months since I'd heard anybody going live.
I hadn't heard that about Medfield. That's good to hear.
I'll see if I
Unless
can.
they're
Yeah, let me, I'll try and look it up.
one of the applicants from 3 years ago that.
Yeah, it's been in the queue. Yeah, I think Wayland. No, Weston. Weston got approved, I think last month, but I think they were in the.
Weston was in for 3 years.
Yeah.
With Situate and those people.
Yeah,
June
but I-
2024.
for Medfield approval. Yeah, does it say what date they applied? Mm. Well, we'll poke around. We get to see. On the adaptation side of things, we submitted a proposal earlier this month for the Coastal Habitat and Water Quality Grants Program with the Office of Coastal Zone Management. And you might be wondering how we did this because we are not a coastal community. And interestingly, for this grant, any community that's within a coastal watershed is eligible to apply. So because the Charles River watershed discharges into Boston Harbor, we are eligible to apply.
Isn't that every river?
I was just
in
gonna
the
say.
country?
It's about, it's a good chunk of half of the state. Yeah.
Well, I think the Hoosick River flows into the Hudson, so,
Oh, all right, yes.
Yeah.
and the Housatonic doesn't count either.
Right.
So we requested $175,000 to fund the design of green stormwater infrastructure, best management practices in the Alderbrook subwatershed. So this is that area kind of,
Got it,
yeah, on Dedham Ave, near the Public Service Administration Building and the Needham Reservoir. So this would fund design for a bioretention basin,
Trouble
stream,
retention.
a bioretention basin, so kind of like a engineered rain garden, basically, for near the DeFazio parking lot. It would fund design for stream daylighting of the portion of the brook that's currently fully culverted.
School deed, what does that mean?
So basically, right now, that portion of the brook is forced through a pipe and it goes underground. I think at one point they intended to put a driveway over there and that didn't happen. But that pipe is way too small for the volume of water we get now, so they basically explore removing that culvert and having that stream be exposed basically. And basically restoring the floodplain along the edges of the brook, which would enable some more natural storage for floodwaters. And it would also fund the design of wetland along that portion of the stream as well. That area has a significant number of invasives. We had a nice conversation with our friends in the conservation department about this project, and that was one of the things that they said would be great to see, would be the restoration of that wetland.
The wall would come down the culvert, right?
They have to, yeah, they would take that, I mean, so that we're only looking at the portion that's up top, so kind of like where if you go down the parking lot, kind of along that driveway.
Yeah.
So we're not looking quite so far down yet, we're starting at the top.
Yeah. Some of the house on Dedham is it's culverted, I mean, it's like, it's wall,
There's wall, yeah,
crazy dangerous.
yeah,
It's a water.
it's
like, don't let your kid fall in. You don't feel that.
yeah, it's definitely a area that seen some flooding. Do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, thank you, Gabby. I just wanted to comment, it's connected only to Brooks. So, so the Herd Brook in Needham is over near the Muzzy Ford area. And so the Mass DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, they're gonna be out there on Monday, looking at some property over there, because there was an appeal filed against a project looking to be built right up against the brook. So I'm just mentioning it because a lot of brooks in town are pertinent or very relative to our water table, our wetlands and so forth. And so it'll be interesting to see what they say about that particular project going right up near Herd Brook. That's all. Since we're so concerned about brooks and so forth and what's going on with them in general, it'll be interesting to see what they say about
Can you
that
say the
project.
name of
That's
the
all.
brook one more time, Artie?
Herd Brook, HURD, Herd Brook. So Herd Brook, and the project is at 80 Gary Road. That particular project is 80 Gary Road. About a 11,000 square foot house being built. About 100 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. They're gonna be here on Monday at 11 a.m. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Artie. The next item, I'm very pleased to share that our congressional earmark request for $3 million of funding from the feds to support stormwater BMPs in Needham was selected by Congressman Auchincloss, Senator Warren, and Senator Markey for their priorities for FY25. So what this means now is that those earmark priorities will go before their respective House and Senate appropriations committees. And we will find out likely in August which projects the appropriation committees want to fund and at what funding levels. I will note that it is very unusual for projects to be selected for funding at the level they proposed. We went a little high knowing this in our application. So we'll cross our fingers that the projects get included with those appropriations committees. The fact that all three of our members of Congress decided to include them in their list of priorities is great. It gives us a great shot that they'll be on both the House and Senate side. But we'll have to wait and see what the committees decide to do.
Is that stormwater capacity or quality?
It would be both.
Well,
Yeah. And then the third item on here, we submitted a request to join EPA's Creating Resilient Water Utilities Initiative. So this is a program that's geared towards municipalities that have drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater utilities, and it provides free climate change risk assessment technical assistance. So we applied for the drinking water and stormwater side, because we are a MWA community. For wastewater, we did not include wastewater. So we will find out later in August if we've been selected to join their cohort for this year. And last item, no updates on the tree summit at this time.
But it hasn't been.
Yeah, okay, I was gonna say, thanks, Joe. You know more than I do. And that is it for me. I can stop sharing.
Gabby, on the
Yeah.
adaptation end of this,
Mhm.
how are you, or do you work? Or just outside just sphere, so for example, like with heat right now, do you, in public health department, a couple of notes on their website,
Mhm.
some cooling hours and stuff like that. Is there anything more targeted being done with regard to that, or like, are we just sort of putting out a message and opening up some cooling centers? I mean, has it been a problem or not? I guess, Needham is not a particularly high-risk community, but there are pockets of Needham where either people live alone or, don't have AC. I really don't know the targeted populations, but that's obviously what the incentive is to, identify people who may be at risk.
Mhm.
We don't really do that, right? As far as I know.
The police put out something, there are several sites,
Yeah, there was
Park and
some.
Rec Library.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
on the website for the EPH, they have a page. A thing about heat and then what hours, like the Y is open,
Mhm.
all those kinds of things,
Yeah,
but, that's it, right? I mean, we're not gonna, I guess going forward. If the ER starts to see more of these types of events, then I guess, the town's reaction might be different.
So I don't know if this is through this, I mean, I think it's through the state, but I was in a climate tech, like. I don't know, a session, and I think it was Boston. I'm still trying to learn all the proper hospitals here, but I think it was like Boston General. One of the, or which hospital is that handles a lot of the lower income patients. But they're Boston University, so they are starting to hand out. Climate related prescriptions for people, like getting them access to utilities and things like that, because.
Yeah, they have a fund, basically,
Yeah.
they have a fund that they created some money from, believe it or not, some solar aggregation that they're involved with, and utilize the money
Mhm.
to offer as, supplement to people who don't have AC or whatever.
Right.
And then there's another project going on that we're in right now, which is to try to identify populations that are at risk for heat and, trying to, making sure those populations typically who are, I don't know, we may not have such a population here in Needham, but I think, I make that assumption and I'm not sure that's always fair. So I guess if we start
we
to
do.
see.
There's always some
Right,
population.
I
I
mean,
know. I was just gonna say, I am not a part of this group, but I know it was either earlier this week or last week, our emergency management administrator. I believe convened a meeting of the EOC specifically to prepare for the heat wave. But I'm not a part of that group, so I can't speak to like what that conversation entailed outside of knowing that they identified the cooling centers and talked about how that information be distributed, but. I would imagine there were other aspects of that conversation. I'm happy to connect you with them if that would be helpful.
I mean, I would imagine there's some element of the town infrastructure that's dealing with that. And
Yes.
that doesn't seem like it's within the purview of what you're doing per se.
I think the overlap is around strategies to address extreme heat, and I was that just had like a very initial conversation with our town epidemiologists and data analysts to talk a little bit about some of the mapping that we could do around air quality and heat islands in Needham. So our definition of what's a heat island is probably gonna look different than what it looks like in larger communities, but that's information that I'm hoping that we can get access to, and I would imagine it's something we would probably get grant funded so that we could have better data on where the warmest parts of the community are, and if we are seeing any impacts to air quality with that. I'm hoping to use that data to help us try to fund some more tree planting efforts and doing targeted cooling strategies in different communities, but I think that's again, just like a very initial conversation that's happening right now. I think it's something that I'd like to see grow even more. But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Just one other, so is it possible for municipalities to implement things like what is happening at Boston University? For people that might be more, like get some sort of grants or fundings, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that program. I'm happy to look into it though and see.
Yeah,
One
Our
thing,
uses them.
Oh, yeah. Artie, do you wanna?
Hey, Steve, want to go? Steve, want to go first?
Thanks. Sorry, yeah, just very briefly, I don't know much about this, Gabby, but it might be something to look into. I've heard that a lot of the trees that are on town-owned property, a lot of the old oaks are starting to die, either because of disease or because their root systems are impacted by traffic. And so I've heard anecdotally that the town might be looking at smaller, more native trees that are a little bit more resilient to where they're being placed. I'm wondering though if there is any consideration being given to how much of a canopy those trees will be creating, and how much carbon sink they can have at maturity. But it's more for the heat island effect. If we're putting a lot of smaller trees in that, when they're at their peak, they're only 20 feet tall.
Right.
That not have as much of a cooling effect as other trees, and so it just might be something to see if they're balancing those competing priorities.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you, Stephen. And also for pedestrians, they have a poke you in the eye quality to them.
Shorter ones.
They're not, like, no, it needs can't has to be above your head,
Yeah.
not in your head.
I will connect with Ed about this, because I'm a little out of the loop, to be honest, about some of our planting strategies right now, so I will connect with him to get myself up to speed. Artie?
Yes, so Gabby, yes, related to the definition, I think we know in general the definition of heat island in general, but I don't know what level something, it's defined as, what is a heat island? You were saying our heat island versus some other communities' heat islands and so forth. And do you know how we're defining that? Will it be defined in the temperature, just basically a temperature gradient, or where are we going to pull those measurements from, or that level from? Do you know it all?
Yeah, I think that's a conversation that we'll have to have, and I don't feel well equipped right now to give you a robust response to this. I know that MAPC has done mapping for land surface temperatures for their entire service area. Boston has very robust data. I know Mystic River Watershed Association did a really robust heat mapping project. So I think there's models we could look at for collecting some of that data, and whether we use the definition MAPC has, which is basically, I think it's the top 5% of areas in the community with the highest land surface temperatures, or we decide to go with a different definition. I think that's something we'll have to assess. But right now we're still at like the very beginning stages about talking about exploring this topic. We haven't really started down the road yet. But
Yes, no, thanks, Gabby. No, I'm glad you said, I'm just glad we're talking about it. So that's excellent. Thank you, Gabby. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think that the last week, in terms of the heat thing that's come on, this has been really the first year that the media is engaged in this topic in a more pervasive way than they have in the past. So even meteorologists are talking about this in a way where they offer advice to people. So I think that there's already sort of a change, you know, in a bigger level where people are talking about not only what's coming, but how to adapt individually so I think that we were all very impressed with that degree of involvement in the media this year as opposed to previous years. I think people are starting to get it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there'll be help.
yeah, I completely agree. I think the fact that we're having a heat wave like this in June is, you know, unfortunately not surprising. But as this becomes an issue that's more top of the mind for people, that seeing extreme heat events is a climate change impact and is something that's becoming more severe and more frequent. Yeah, I think the resources that are provided are just gonna, have to be more robust.
Yeah, and they're talking about the loss in, you know, labor, so I mean, for road crews. how do you
Yeah,
work
lots
with
of
your
time.
clients?
Yeah,
But I guess currently the only resources that we're offering for people to get reprieve is the cooling centers.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think so, but I don't wanna speak for that group, cause I'm not part of,
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
that decision-making body, so it's entirely possible that there are other things that are happening that I'm not aware of, and I'm happy to connect the group with our emergency
Boston has
management
all of its
administrator.
cooling centers.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, there's nowhere right now to call, say like, I don't have an AC, can you get me an AC?
Right.
That's not happening.
Yeah.
It's very, very.
I mean, it's wild to me that in Boston that some of y'all just don't have AC. I'm sorry, that was.
Well, 11% of people who live in Boston don't have any.
Right, yeah, it's just
Because
crazy.
in Phoenix, most people have AC. And the people who suffer heat stroke and are people who are homeless, basically, so people who are not housed. Yeah, sick from heat, more so, and
Yeah.
because they have a huge homeless population.
Yeah.
Which is a problem, so different states or different localities have different heat risks based on different people's living situation, which is
Right.
interesting, yeah. You sorry, I digress.
Oh, yeah, that's good. It's a
So-
good topic.
Our next item is an update on the Powers Hall event. 2 weeks ago. Stephen, do you wanna?
Sure. We had a very good turnout for those who weren't able to tonight. Artie was there, Cameron was there, Nick was there, Gabby was there. I'm not sure who else was.
Fred was there, I believe.
Wasn't,
Hank,
And we-
Marianne,
Luann was there.
Marianne was able to come as well. So we had really good attendance. I saw members of several of the other boards in attendance as well. So that was really positive to see. It was a very friendly audience. I think the general types of questions that were coming up were, they were more specific on how to do A or how to do B. Some of them very granular, how to retrofit an old 1920s house with small rooms and no vents, so it was kind of interesting that the mindset for that group was pretty much how can the town help solve the problems. But it was engaged. We used the whole hour, and I think it was a good first go, and hopefully we'll set Gabby up nicely for the outreach program that she's starting to work on with Green Needham. Green Needham was there in force, of course, so that was nice to see. Overall, it was a nice bookend. So I think it was a good. I think it was a good statement of the collective effort that went into building the roadmap, that we had so many people who either directly participated or indirectly participated show up to see the final product. So I'll leave it there. I don't know if Nick or Gabby, if you have anything else you want to add.
I was just wondering if you have a sense of any stakeholders or communities that we weren't thinking about that might be useful additional allies?
you mean in terms of,
People who came or were asking questions since I wasn't able to make it,
yeah,
or if it was the usual suspects.
I mean, I got a lot of folks coming up to me and introducing themselves and asking for business cards, so that was good. So nice to share contact information, and I think there's a lot of folks who want to volunteer, which is great.
Good.
I guess I don't know of any particular additional stakeholders, but I think we've reached a good number of people through those networks leading up to the event, so I'd like to be able to tap into those again as we start to build out our outreach program. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and the Needham channel did record it. I haven't looked to see if it's been posted yet. I assume it has been.
Yes, and they put it on YouTube as well.
Good. Good. So
Cool.
hopefully it'll get some good views. Maybe at some point we could reach out to Mark over there and just ask him if he can get us any metrics on how many people have viewed it. But that could be another good resource. Maybe a link to add to Green Needham and maybe the town page if
Yeah.
I think Green Needham is adding it, and someone was asking about getting a picture of you presenting.
Oh.
I didn't take any pictures of me presenting.
I told them just reuse from when we kicked off the thing. With no one noticed the difference, Powers Hall.
We'll take a
Yeah,
picture now,
okay.
Steve.
You
Yeah,
haven't aged that much in the past 2 years, Stephen, so.
It feels like a bit in the last 2 years, but sure.
I thought it was good, Stephen. I thought it was straightforward, really clear, presenting here's the data, here's just literally here's the information, here's what's going on. There was nothing trying to be circumnavigated. It was simply here's what's going on, and here's what our goals are, and here's what we're trying to accomplish. It was I mean, you're always going to find some people that could refute anything. They could refute the sky, the sky and the earth being round and stuff like that. But I thought it was pretty straightforward and pretty clear. That went well.
Well, I could not go because I had a last minute change of plans. But I was talking to someone the next day, I forget who, but they were like, that Stephen Trail is amazing. He is so good at this. And just on and on, he's smooth, he's concise, we frame an argument, understand what people are saying.
It was Heidi, or?
Yeah, exactly. But he did great. Thank you.
Maybe that's-
Nick gets the win.
touche. Touche.
Well,
Anyway, no, it was good, and I think, and again, I tried very hard to say over and over what a collective effort this was, because I do think it's important for everybody to feel as if it was a group effort across all sectors of Needham, and it's going to require all sectors in order to implement going forward. So I hope that resonated strongly with the people who were there.
yeah,
Right, and so now we segue into our final agenda item, the next steps, moving from the Climate Action Planning Committee to the Climate Action Committee.
Yeah.
And I'll also start by saying it's been a great 2 years. It seems both very short and a really long time in terms of how this has gotten, it's normal now, normalized within Needham.
yeah.
And we have a sustainability coordinator.
Yes.
No, that's right.
That just seems
Joe-
like a possibility.
When
I-
Joe
I-
Higgins-
Yeah, I agree. Some conversations are normalized, but there's just so much more to do. I mean, it's just the conversations are normalized, but normalizing conversations is one thing. Actually, homeowners and people doing something, acting on it was something different. And so I'm just really hoping that people really get it and actually start acting upon their convictions they vocalize. And so again, I'm not trying to dismiss the fact that it's being talked about a lot more. It is. I'm just really hoping that people really start acting on it right now.
Well,
Doesn't-
effective
It's just,
July 1st, the builders will.
Well,
Have
more
to
than
be
that,
done.
yeah, we did the Optum code, we
We
did.
did
electronic-
Optum code.
We got
We
a
did
climate, We got the road back.
the roadmap, we got Gabby, we got we're getting toward the aggregation, so.
Got- We, yeah,
And
We
good
just,
Okay.
we
school.
need a tree summit.
got the solar.
We need the
Sorry,
tree
yeah.
summit. We need the tree summit.
We were talking about
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
did we share did I share the note, or did you guys see the email that was sent to the select board on, on on our committee's behalf? I don't
Yeah,
know.
Yes,
Didn't.
But has RD or others, Cameron, seen it?
I thought
don't-
it was sent out to the group as a whole, but
I might have forgotten to send that. I apologize. I will send that out right after we get off. Apologies.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody saw that the priorities that we voted on did get transmitted over to the select board.
At our planning board meeting Tuesday night, actually, Natasha actually brought up as we were looking at the select board priorities, going over there and what we felt and so forth, and she brought up the fact that we wanted the planning board, we wanted to emphasize trees, the tree summit, and having a tree bylaw. We wanted to emphasize that, so and now's the time. We're talking about conversations, now's the time.
amen, absolutely.
The big lift, sooner that we get started, better.
On a note about the Climate Action Committee, an email was sent out today for those of you who responded to that doodle poll for selecting the first meeting. Thank you for doing so. Appreciate it. Yeah, looking forward to getting that group up and running.
do we have our youth?
We do have a youth representative.
Good. Is that a high school student?
It is a high school student. Their name is not listed on the website, but I am gonna figure out how to get it on the website. And I actually haven't had the chance to meet them yet. I understand that their information was shared with the select board. So I'm hoping to get to
Great.
them soon. Yeah.
And is the role of the Climate Action Committee significantly different than what we've been doing in the past few months as far as?
What do you want us to do? Like, you want us to comment on things, like we sit here and just ankle bite at your suggestions and that kind of stuff? Or do you want us, or like, do we just sort of sit, listen, and then you're looking for feedback about specific things? I mean, how do you want us to help? Or do you think that whatever initiative you're going to propose, like, let's say something with EVs or public acceptance of EVs, you're gonna need people to sort of serve as the nidus in the community to make those projects work. So I just, how can you possibly do everything, right? And that's question number one. So what is our role to make that actually spread out?
So I guess I will say the charter of the committee is online. If you go to the committee page, there's a Climate Action Committee dedicated webpage, which kind of breaks down responsibilities for the group. But I think my hope is that in that first meeting that we have, we will identify what the priorities of the committee will be. And I would love that to be a conversation that's maybe supported by me, but is, really led by the group. So I'm gonna be spending some time in the next couple of weeks kind of putting together topics that I know I could appreciate support on, both, feedback, but also for folks who are willing to put in the time, some extra research support, things like that. But again, like my initial list, I don't want to be the end all be all. I'd really like that to be a decision that's made by the group about what priorities to decide to run with for this first year. That's my hope for the first meeting.
We also will be tasked with keeping the climate action roadmap vital and up to date. So as we
Yeah.
Right,
identify new opportunities to reduce carbon townwide, we can add new tasks in there. I think new strategies if we figure out those. But I think it's largely, as I understand, is keeping the work moving forward, trying to keep our focus and like we've talked before, if the town can only do two to four things in a year, what are those 2 to 4 things? What should they be, and how do we map them back to our carbon footprint?
Right.
I think Gabby's doing that more than us, but because of the way the government works, there's a element of advise and consent and approval that works through committees as opposed to through the town staff. So
I think prioritizing as well as advice, helping, because you parse the floodwaters.
it also
Yeah.
helps consensus across the boards and committees because they have permanent representation in the new climate action committee,
Yeah.
finance committee, and now we
Yes.
still have the conservation committee and the planning board. But there's new like permanent public building committee is now going to have a permanent person, not just staff liaison, but somebody who's on the committee voting for it. And so as the actions get discussed and prioritized within the climate action committee, hopefully those representatives are helping bring along their boards and committees, and we get consensus as the annual budget setting happens. So.
And, I think that for those of us who, we're not gonna be doing this forever, we wanna identify younger people who will come on board and be part of this, and I look forward to, I think it's our responsibility, mine certainly, to find, younger people in the community to serve like on this and to do it moving forward over the next, 3 or 4 years. And happily, we look forward to that. So for those of us who identify younger people who are interested, then we can get, transition to people who are just moved into town or want to do it,
Yeah,
it's gonna be important.
yeah, I agree. It'd be great to have a pipeline going.
Under 60 would be good.
Yeah. You are the eyes and ears of the town on this, on these environmental issues, and you also have some authority. You choose priorities and what gets recommended.
Mhm.
Be informed by like best practice and it like that, but it is up to you, just. And then you recommend to the select board, and that's what goes into the 5-year, the budget and 5-year plan, so.
Mhm.
That's a good, yeah, it's a good one.
So any other?
Yes, very well. I'm stepping off. Yes, I'm stepping down. You're in that,
Big shoes to fill.
in the name of the select board.
He's got box on. So,
That's the retirement shoes to walk.
Easy shoes to fill.
Very comfortable.
Plastic
You
shoes.
kind of were supposed to mention that. This on Zoom. No, this has been a great committee.
It is a great committee.
Hey, Gabby, may I ask you, who's the gentleman behind you? Do we have a guest, or is that someone that's greatly interested in the committee?
Want to introduce yourself?
You can.
Sure, most of you know me, Steve, and Nick in particular. So my name is Ray Williams. I moved here about a year ago from California. For 10 years or so, my last 10 years, I worked for the large utility in California that went bankrupt because of wildfires. And I was there, I'll follow that by saying I was their climate policy lead for those last 10 years. State and federal issues mostly. And so now I'm here, I'm retired, I have time. I'm looking, to basically use some of my retirement to do good things, and that's really the reason why I'm here. To have some expertise in the area.
So are you going to be an official member of our group?
I haven't have to be invited, so.
Yeah.
Well, I think all of the climate action committee seats have been appointed, but those terms are staggered, so depending on when committee members.
Go online and there's a volunteer for committees. You did that?
For Green Needham.
Yeah, for Green Needham and also.
Oh,
for
no,
Fun-
no.
But
Anyway,
for town committees.
for town
Yeah, for
committees.
town.
And that just, even though it sits there, it will, next time it's open, it's activated.
Yeah.
So it's not,
Which one?
on, for this, CAC, just jump on, and apply. And therefore you'll be in line. So if anyone,
Apply for that committee.
yeah, yeah, anything that's experiencing in the last, which one's yours? And you do that. But no, we do the work.
There may be some committee vacancies as well. If you're eager to get involved, yeah, it looks like well, that's community. Conservation Commission has one vacancy right now. Just looking through. That's the most related. If you have finance background, the finance committee has two vacancies.
Yes, I have a finance background, not from academics, but from working for a bankruptcy utility.
Hopefully that's not something Needham will expertise Needham will ever need.
Occasionally Gabby and others hear me with some certain statements about things, and it's not me as a character, it's just some of the experiences that I've had over the years.
You really seen it.
They're scars.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, even if there isn't an opening on our designated quantity of people on the committee right now, clearly you're here because you're interested. And and just stay interested and stay informed and stay with us. And stay connected and with any experience, expertise you have and so forth. And then again, maybe an opening or a quantity will increase or something. But please, it's great that you came here. That doesn't happen often. It does not happen often that someone just shows up, especially over the summertime. So it's great that you did that.
Yeah, I think I was the last person that showed up.
I appreciate that, Arnie, thank you.
Shall we, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Before you do,
Before we do,
make that motion, unless a motion has been made and we have to vote on it. I just wanted to thank everybody, and I'm hoping that those of you who are there go over to cook or something and have a little toast to the work that we've all done. So if we can't do that tonight, I can't do that tonight, but if we could do that in the future, I'd also join. But just want to thank everybody for all the work they put in. All right. That's all I wanted to say.
Good job.
We have the roll
We
call
have a
vote.
vote.
Because.
Well, we'll start online. Fred?
Has it been seconded?
Motion
I
to adjourn.
seconded it.
Okay,
Yeah,
Fred?
I vote in favor.
Artie?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Kevin?
Yes.
Kevin?
Aye.
Aye, and vice chair votes aye. So you're unanimous.
Woo, all right, great. Thank you,
Thanks, guys.
guys.
We'll see you.
2 years.
Take
Would
care.
anyone like to? Go cook even without Stephen? Or-